So Ted Cruz put out a tweet that the car crash that happened on the Rainbow Bridge was a terrorist attack. Now, since then, he's deleted that tweet. But in MAGA's world, all he had to do was plant that seed, and now people are going to believe it forever. Years from now, there's going to be people saying, yeah, but what really happened on that Rainbow Bridge? And when you point out to them that the FBI found no evidence, there was no explosives in the car, the victims in the crash was not linked to terrorism in any way. When you point out that information to them, they'll say, oh, no, that's just them trying to cover it up. I know something that they don't want you to know. And that's one of MAGA's favorite talking points. They love to act like they're smarter than the rest of us, that they have information that none of the rest of us has. Only they know it. And they know it because the powers that be doesn't want you to know it. And if you point out that Ted Cruz deleted the tweet, they'll just say, well, they made him delete the tweet, or they're trying to silence him, or they're trying to take away his First Amendment rights. And if Ted Cruz gets cornered about the whole thing, he'll just bait and switch and start talking about the southern border, and everybody will just turn their heads and look in that direction and believe into that myth too. So MAGA has a built-in defense system already in place. They have scapegoats already in place to where they never lose an argument. When confronted with actual evidence, it means nothing to them in their world. Now, I've had people say to me, Brando, how do you think this is? How can people be manipulated and be this gullible to fall for this stuff and keep falling for this stuff even with the evidence in front of them that proves it the other way? Well, I really blame it on organized religion. At the end of the day, if you raise your children up to believe that the world was created in 6 days and it was a perfect place until a talking snake messed it up, if you can convince people that a guy took one of each species and put them on a wooden boat, if you can convince them that a guy got swallowed up by a whale and spit back out 3 days later, that a virgin gave birth to a baby who grew up to walk on water and raise the dead and was crucified, put in a tomb, rose from the grave 3 days later, shot back up to heaven to the Father, and he's coming back one day to get you. Well, hell, if you can get them to believe in that, you can get them to believe in something crazy happened on the Rainbow Bridge. It's easy. If they will fall for that, because they've been raised to fall for that stuff. And they've been raised to never question that stuff. And they've been raised with the built-in defense system of that stuff. When you ask them to provide evidence, what do? Whenever you ask them, show me the evidence for Jonah and the whale. Well, it says so in the Bible. And when you say, yeah, well, you're going to have to do better than that. You know, if you go into a Spider-Man comic to prove that Spider-Man is real, that's really not how you do it. You know, if I say to you, prove to me that Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead is a real person, and you pull out your Walking Dead DVDs, yeah, that's not really the evidence we're looking for here. But once you have people buying into that stuff, it's easy as hell to get them to buy into anything else. They'll believe that JFK is still alive. They'll believe that he's Keith Richards in disguise. They'll believe in satanic pizza parlors. And then anytime you put evidence in front of them, they've got a scapegoat. They've got it out. Now, Ted Cruz is not as dumb as Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert. Ted Cruz is a smart guy. He knows how to work and manipulate the crowd. He realizes, hey, these people are gullible. I can sell them anything. They'll believe anything I say. And he realizes that if he cuts them off, he loses his base. He loses his voters. It's all about control. It's all about winning. Ron DeSantis said that he knew the election was fair, but he just kept saying it because he wanted to win. They admit it. They say it out loud. That's the funniest part to me is they tell you they're playing you. That's what cracks me up. They just come right out and say it. Donald Trump went around to go and lock her up. And then when he got in office and everybody said, hey, ain't you going to lock her up? He said, well, yeah, that just worked while I was on the campaign trail. I wasn't really going to do it. And people just sit there and just, well, okay, cool. And now they believe he's going to lock them up again. It's so ridiculous. But when you have that sort of built-in defense system, you can argue with these people all day long, provide all the evidence you want to. It's not going to matter. So Ted Cruz planted that seed. Doesn't matter if he deleted it. Doesn't matter if he denies it later. Doesn't matter what he says. He planted that seed, and in their world, they'll believe it. Now, here's the funny part. You can show them what really happened on January 6th, and they'll go, oh, no, that didn't happen. And you can say, yeah, but look, right here it is. It happened right in front of your face. Here, no, you're not seeing that the right way. And that's what every cult leader says to his followers. Don't believe what you see. Don't believe what you hear. Just believe what I tell you. So here's my theory. If they're going to set and plant those kind of seeds, and they're going to take hold and grow, then we have to be over here combating that with the truth, combating it with facts, combating it with evidence, combating it with science. And we have to plant those seeds. And no, we're probably not going to win over the extremists. We're not going to win over the people who have fully bought into it. I have people say all the time to me, they'll say, Brando, buddy, you're preaching, to the choir, these people are never going to hear you. They're not going to listen to what you're saying. You know, they're not going to listen to you. Here's my argument. I'm not talking to the guy who's already got the glass of Kool-Aid down. I'm not talking to that guy. I'm talking to the people who are sitting there not saying anything, to the quiet ones on the fence, to the quiet one at Thanksgiving dinner. Flashback a couple of days ago, you're sitting at Thanksgiving. Uncle Randy went off on a big political rant, and everybody stayed quiet, and they let Uncle Randy spew all that shit. You had Cousin Steve over here just sitting there with his head down. Steve wasn't really buying into the bullshit, but he didn't say anything because he didn't want to rock the boat. He didn't want to make Mama mad. So what you do is you keep talking, and if you keep talking and you keep pointing this stuff out, eventually old Steve's going to go, yeah, man, I'm not buying into this bullshit at all. That's the target audience. That's who you're talking to. You're never going to win over the extremists. Don't even try. But work harder at telling the truth, putting out the evidence, because there's people right now that's sitting back on the fence being quiet. That's what they did in 2020. There was people sitting back on the fence. They were quiet. They went out and voted, and then MAGA couldn't figure it out. How did we lose? Well, you were really loud and obnoxious, and the quiet people who was in the real world got up and went and voted. So, yeah, they're going to keep planting those seeds. They're not going to stop. The politicians are going to keep manipulating their audience, and the audience is going to keep buying it. And the way that we combat that is with the truth and with reality. We don't live in that alternate reality. We live in the real world. And we have to keep reminding ourselves of that. And we're talking to the people on the fence that's sitting there starting to see through the bullshit. That's the people that we talk to. And hey, you know what? Old cousin Steve may never speak out. He may never call old cousin Uncle Randy down. He may never tell him that's bullshit. But he'll go to the poll and vote. And that's what matters.